Welcome, everyone. I am Moshtaba Kashani, coordinator of the Literature of Annihilation, Exile, and Resistance series at the University of Notre Dame. As you can see, we are in Zoom meeting mode, which means you are free to keep your cameras on. Please do so if you are comfortable. It is wonderful for our speakers to be able to see their audience. Please make sure to mute your sound as well. Although I know we are all located in different geographies here, the event is hosted by the University of Notre Dame, which I would like to acknowledge is situated on the traditional homelands of indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee, Miami, Peoria, and particularly the Pokagon and Potawatomi, who have been using this land for thousands of years and continue to do so. We recognize our own place in the history and practices of colonialism and understand that our responsibilities extend beyond this gesture of land acknowledgement. We must also reflect on the University of Notre Dame's past, present, and future relationship with the original stewards of this land and actively pursue ways to amend this troubled relationship. Literatures of Annihilation, Exile, and Resistance is an interdisciplinary research collective and lecture series focused on questions of human rights and the arts in the global Middle East, Southwest Asia, and North Africa. Launched by Nazanin van der Williet Ulumi, it is co-sponsored by the College of Arts and Letters and by the Kroc Institute for International Peace Studies, and housed at the Initiative on Race and Resilience, directed by Mark Sanders, Professor of English and African Studies. We have a new website at deedofexile.nd.edu, including an interactive map that traces the migration routes of all our guests. Please visit the site to explore our future events, written interviews, and more. I would like to thank our partners. This event is presented in partnership with the Kevorkian Center for Near Eastern Studies at NYU. We are also partnered with Transnational Literature Series at Brooklyn Booksmith, and I want to thank them for their collaboration with us and encourage you to purchase our guest books through Brooklyn Booksmith. Feel free to make your purchases anytime throughout the event. This afternoon, our guests are Saïd, Khatibi, and Amara Lakhous. The conversation will be moderated by Alexander Elinson. There will be time at the end of the event for Q&A, so please at any time feel free to leave your question in the chat and we will get to as many as we can during the Q&A period, during which you will also be invited to raise your hand. Alexander Elinson is Associate Professor of Arabic and Head of the Arabic Program, Hunter College of the City University of New York. In addition to his book, Looking Back at Al-Andalus, The Poetics of Loss and Nostalgia in Medieval Arabic and Hebrew Literature, he has written extensively on classical Arabic and Hebrew poetry and prose, as well as on contemporary language, politics, and ideology, prison narratives, and oral and written culture in Morocco. He has translated 2 novels by Youssef Fadel, A Beautiful White Cat Walks With Me, and A Shimmering Red Fish Swims With Me, the latter of which was shortlisted for the 2020 Saif Obash Banipal Prize for Arabic Literary Translation. He has also translated Hot Mark by Yasin Adnan, which was shortlisted for the 2022 Saif Obash Banipal Prize. His translation of Khadija Marouzi prison novel History of Ash will be published this summer. He is currently translating Amara Lakhous' latest novel, The Nightbird, and Saïd Khatibi's The End of the Sahara. It is my pleasure to invite Alexander Elinson to begin this event.
Thank you so much, Mujtaba, for the wonderful introduction. Thank you for all of your tireless work and help coordinating this event over many months. In fact, very happy to finally be here. I also want to thank Nazanin van der Williet Ulumi, who launched this research group and lecture series, and I want to thank the entire board of the Research Collective and the lecture series, which has been putting on these wonderful events for the past 2 or more years. Just to say a few words about today's format, I'll start off by introducing our 2 speakers, Amara Lakhous and Saïd Khatibi, after which they'll read some from their work. We will then engage in a brief discussion about their work and other issues. And then, as Mujtaba mentioned, we will have time, about 15-20 minutes or so at the end, to open it up for Q&A. So first, I'd introduce Saïd Khatibi, who is a novelist, travel writer, translator, and cultural journalist, born in 1984 in Bou Saada, Algeria. He writes in Arabic and French and translates between the two. He holds a BA in French literature from the University of Algiers and an MA in cultural studies from the Sorbonne University in Paris. His novels include The Book of Errors, 40 Years Waiting for Isabel, which won the 2017 Katara Award for the novel, Sarajevo Firewood, which was shortlisted for the 2020 International Prize for Arabic Fiction, and The End of the Sahara, which just a week or two ago won the 2023 Sheikh Zayed Book Award Young Author category. His novels have been translated into Persian, Spanish, and English. He's also written about travel in the Balkans, in Gardens of the East Inflamed, and has written extensively on Rai music, publishing a book on the topic in 2010 entitled Wedding Fire. He lives in Slovenia. Amara Lakhous was born in Algeria in 1970 and moved to Italy in 1995. He has a degree in philosophy from the University of Algiers and another in humanities from the University of Rome, where he completed a PhD entitled Living Islam as a Minority. He is the author of 5 novels, 3 of which he wrote in both Arabic and Italian. His best-known works are the much-acclaimed Clash of Civilizations Over an Elevator in Piazza Vittorio, Divorce Islamic Style, A Dispute Over a Very Italian Piglet, and The Prank of the Good Little Virgin in Via Ormea. His latest novel, The Night Bird, was longlisted for the 2021 International Prize for Arabic Fiction. His novels have been translated from Italian into English, German, French, Spanish, Dutch, Japanese, Danish, and Persian. Among the many awards Lakhous has received are the Flaiano Prize in Italy in 2006 and the Algerian Booksellers Prize in 2008. Amara Lakhous moved to New York City in August of 2014 and will be joining the Department of Italian Studies at Yale University in the fall. I'm very delighted to be here today with Amara and Saïd. I can truly say are friends and 2 of my absolute favorite writers. I've known Amara for almost 10 years as a friend and a repeat visitor to my classes at Hunter College, where I've taught his novel Clash of Civilizations Over an Elevator in Piazza Vittorio numerous times. He's always a student favorite when he comes to visit. Over the past 2 years, I've come to know Amara on a different level as we've been working on a translation of his latest novel, The Night Bird. I became acquainted with Saïd Khatibi more recently after reading his novel, Sarajevo Firewood, a beautiful and haunting work that moves between Algeria, Bosnia, and Slovenia. So taken was I by this novel, and after subsequently reading and loving his most recent one, The End of the Sahara, we started working on translating this latest work into English. I'm now going to hand it over, and we'll now hear a little bit from Saïd and Amara as they read from their own works. And we'll start with Amara, who will be reading an excerpt from his 2014 novel, Dispute Over a Very Italian Piglet, translated from Italian into English by Anne Goldstein. And then afterwards, we'll hear from Saïd, who will read an excerpt from The End of the Sahara in Arabic, so we can hear the original Arabic, and I will read my translation of the corresponding passage in English. So I want to welcome you all. Welcome Saïd, welcome Amara, and hand it over to Amara Lakhous.
Alex, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting us. And I'm very delighted to share this, this fantastic event with great friends, Alexander Elinson and Saïd Khatibi. I'm reading a passage from Dispute Over a Very Italian Piglet. The protagonist of this novel is talking about his friend, his Moroccan friend. I met Sam, diminutive of Samir, in 1998. He had just arrived in Turin from Tangiers after he had been here illegally for 4 years. I hired him as a house cleaner so he could get a residency permit, but he paid the Social Security himself. As soon as he got the permit, he asked me to fire him. It is the only time in my life I have hired a worker and then fired him. Being a boss is not for me. Anyway, officially, he is a domestic worker, as it says on his residence permit, but unofficially, he is an artist. In music, he is a real genius. He can play any instrument he picks up. Sam's story is no different from that of millions of North African youths who have just one idea in their heads: to get away at all costs. It's a story I know too well, having heard it directly from him many times. Sam really likes to repeat this North African proverb: you can't cross a river without getting wet. To achieve a goal or realize a dream, you always have to pay a price. Life doesn't give you anything. This is my Moroccan friend had reckoned with before he started his adventure as haraga. Haraga is an Algerian term that literally means to burn the sea. And it's used to describe a dangerous crossing in ramshackle boat. Very often, it's an extreme journey, one way only, because of the risk of drowning. The word burn probably refers to documents, traveling without a passport, without a visa, and without a ticket. Sam began dreaming of Europe as a child because it was very close to his native city in northern Morocco. It took only a few minutes to cross the Strait to Gibraltar. In fact, the distance that separates Africa from Europe is just a few kilometers. To be precise, only 14 fucking kilometers. He dreamed a lot as a child. He believed that on the other side, they were only blonde, blue-eyed children with straight hair. Their parents showered them with gifts, with chocolate and candy every day because they were very rich, unlike his parents, who always had trouble making it to the end of the month. In childhood, he developed a strong feeling of injustice. He said to himself, "My God, why didn't you bring me into the world 14 kilometers to the north? Why did I do wrong?" He was always told it's a matter of maktub, destiny. Everything is decided before you are born, so you should always be satisfied. God has his blessed reasons and never makes a mistake. The situation got worse during and after adolescence. He continued to think obsessively about his European contemporaries, free to kiss girls in public without fear and to demonstrate in the streets without being arrested and tortured. 8 years ago, he decided to change his destiny. He was 25, a graduate of conservatory, and had a dream to fulfill: to become a great musician. To reach the European El Dorado, he made 2 crossings. The first, he had to secretly cross the Algerian-Libyan desert. Then he paid for a place on run-down boat loaded with desperate Somalis, Senegalese, Nigerians, North Africans, Palestinians, Kurds, Pakistanis, and others. It's very hard to describe that experience. Suffice to say that he looked death in the face. He prayed a lot, even though he is not in the least observant, begging God insistently to forgive him for not obeying his will. God wished him to be born in Morocco, to live and die there, but Sam rebelled. They nearly drowned, but were rescued by an Italian military ship. Divine mercy is immense. After a few days in a detention center for illegal in Sicily, he was released with an expulsion order that gave him 2 weeks to leave Italian territory. He tore up the piece of paper the same day because he had no intention of returning to Morocco. He had just arrived in Italy, in Europe, in paradise, after so many sacrifices. In other words, now that he had reached paradise, he deserved to stay there forever. So he followed the advice of young Tunisian who told him to go to Naples because there was a lot of work in the surrounding areas. The tomato harvest had just begun. He got there in a couple of days, but in place of a lot of work, he found a lot of despair. Hundreds of young Africans, Asians, Eastern Europeans, packed like mice into shanty towns, reduced to slavery in the fields and controlled by ruthless overseers. There was misery everywhere. Even the Italians were suffering between unemployment and the Camorra, the Italian criminality. He endured that inferno for a week. Then he decided to keep going north to Turin, the city of Fiat and Juventus.
Thank you, Amara. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Side note, I love that book. It's a great book. Let's keep Sam in our minds as we listen to Saïd read a little bit from his novel, The End of the Sahara, reading in Arabic so that we can hear the novel as it was written, and then I'll be reading from my translation. And so, Saïd, I'll hand it to you, and if you want to just set up the scene that you will be reading.
Thank you, Alex, and hello, everyone. It's a great honor for me to be with you today, and thank you so much for this invitation. I'm gonna read in Arabic one chapter of the last novel, The End of the Sahara. لولا السكينة التي غرستها في كتف ابن عمي لما نجوت من الموت، ولا عشت لأروي حكايتي التي بدأت ذلك الصباح حين نفح الحر سلعتي السمراء وغيظ يتقد على الذين رحلوني من القرية قبل أن يعتريني فزع من المشهد الذي قابلني. قطبت جبيني وتعرج ظلي على شجرة عرعر. ضربت عصاي على الأرض معترضا سبيل الشياه. عددتها من 1 إلى 6 ثم اقتدتها إلى البيت حيث لمحت ابنتي لويزا التي لم تتعدى 12 من عمرها منحنية ببدنها النحيف مثل قلم رصاص أمام البيت تلاعب شقيقها سالم الذي تعلم لتوه المشي عاريا سوى من قميص أخضر يعلو سرته. وكلفتها بصوت ساخب بأن تدخلها الزريبة. استقامت تنفذ أمري فسقطت عصاي أمامها بعدما قذفتها كرياضي يقذف رمحا. وحين نادت تسألني وين ماشي يا بوي، كنت قد ابتعدت مخلفا غبارا ينتفض تحت رجلي. عدت إلى مكان الجثة الملقاة على ظهرها بساقين منفرجتين على أرض منحدرة بين أعشاب الشيح. يا سيدي ربي، مسدت ذقني الذي لم أحرقه من أسبوع، ثم رفعت راحة يدي اليمنى إلى صدغي مرتاعا من منظر دم متيبس يتمدد بين منخرها وكتفها اليسرى قبل أن أسدد بصري إلى فتحة قميصها البيج حيث ظهر عقد ذهبي. اللهم اغفر لها، قلت مستشعرا رخصا في معدتي. دققت في شعرها الفاحم الطويل الذي ينتهي بخصلات نصف ملتوية. عيناها بنيتان ورموشهما مخضبة بالكحل، بينما أنفها المكور مثل حبة عنب معفر بذرات تراب. ورأيت نكبة على فكها السفلي متخيلا لوعة أهلها بمحل بها. أوحت لي قسمات وجهها أنها في العشرينية من عمرها، ولاحظت أنها أنحف من زوجتي ببشرة أكثر نعومة، متكهنا أنها ممرضة أو مدرسة. محتارا كيف وصلت إلى هنا؟ لا امرأة عاقلة تغامر وحدها في هذا المرج الملتصق بالمدينة مثل زائدة دودية. سمعت هذا التشبيه من موظف في البلدية حيث تكثر نباتات سامة وأطر طبية لا يتزاحم فيه سوى فقراء بنوا مساكن عشوائية لهم من قصدين وقصب وقش على أمل أن تعطف عليهم الدنيا فينتقلوا إلى بيوت موصولة بماء وكهرباء. وددت أن أضع يدي على جبهتها وأتلو آيات من القرآن. كلام ربي يشفى للموتى، لكنني عجزت عن لمسها. ما زلت مسكونا بخجل من النساء ورثته من قسوة أمي معي في صغري. فحين يتقاطع طريقي مع امرأة لا أعرفها أخفض بصري وقد يحمر خداي إلى أن تغيب عن ناظري. عينت قرطا مزينا بكرة لؤلؤ على شحمة أذنها، وتنبهت إلى أن ابنتي لم تلبس يوم الحلية. ثم تراجعت خطوتين مخافة أن يدهمني أحد ما في غفلة مني ويتهمني بجرم لم أرتكبه. فطنت إلى ساعة تبرغ في معصمها الأيمن طلاء وردي على أظافرها الطويلة، وشرد ذهني عما قد يوجد في حقيبة الجد التي استقرت بين ساقيها، مال أم ذهب. حرولت إلى حاجز أمن يقع على طريق يحاذي المرج، يراقب وثائق المركبات ويحرر مخالفات لمن يفرطون في السرعة، وينتصب كل يوم من 7 صباحا إلى 8 مساء. تتناوب عليه دوريتان. أديت تحية للشرطيين المداومين بفك يرتجف، ثم أردفت كلمات متقطعة: ميتة، شفتها طايحة، مشيرا بسبابتي إلى مكان الجثة. مد أحد الشرطيين عنقه صوبي: أنت مريض؟ وهو يحك ربلة ساقه اليمنى. أروح تشوف بعينك. تبادل الشرطيان نظرة استغراب، ثم ركبت معهما في سيارتهما واتجهنا إلى المحل الذي أرشدتهما إليه.
Thank you. Thank you. If not for the knife, I had plunged into my cousin's shoulder. Sorry, let me start again. If not for the knife I had plunged into my cousin's shoulder, I would not have been delivered from death, and would not have lived to tell my tale, which began that morning when the heat scorched my dark, bald spot, and my anger raged against those who had made me leave the village. I was seized with terror by the scene that lay before me. I frowned and made my way over to a juniper tree. I struck the ground with my staff to block my sheep's path. I counted them from 1 to 6, then drove them home, where I caught sight of my daughter, Louisa, who had not yet reached the age of 12. She was leaning her pencil-thin body against the door as she played with her brother, Salim, who had just learned to walk. He was naked except for a green shirt that went down to his belly button. I shouted at her to put them in the pen. She straightened up to do what I asked her to. My staff landed on the ground in front of her where I had thrown it like a javelin. When she called out to me, "Where are you going, Dad?" I had already gone, leaving dust in my wake. I went back to where the body had been dumped on its back, legs apart on the sloping ground among the wormwood plants. Dear Lord. I stroked my chin, which I hadn't shaved for a week, then lifted my right palm up to my temple, horrified at the sight of drying blood running from her nose to her left shoulder. I turned my eyes to the opening of her beige shirt where a gold necklace came into view. God forgive her. I felt a sharp pain in my stomach. I examined her long black hair that ended in half-twisted tufts. Her eyes were brown and she was wearing black kohol on her eyelashes. Her round nose looked like a grape, dusted with bits of dirt. I saw a scar on her lower jaw as I imagined her family's anguish upon hearing the news. She looked to be in her 20s. I noticed she was thinner than my wife, with softer skin, guessing she was a nurse or a teacher. I was baffled. How did she get here? No rational woman would venture alone into this meadow where all sorts of poisonous and medicinal plants grow in abundance, that was attached to the city like an appendix. I had heard this analogy from a municipal employee. The only people jammed in here were the poor, who built informal dwellings out of tin, cane, and straw, hoping that one day the world would look kindly on them and they could move to houses with water and electricity. I wanted to place my hand on her forehead and recite some verses from the Quran. My Lord's words heal the dead, but I couldn't bring myself to touch her. I was still possessed by a shyness of women that I got from my mother's strictness with me when I was young. When a woman I don't know crosses my path, I still lower my eyes and might blush until she disappears from sight. I looked at the pearl earring in her earlobe and realized that my daughter had never worn jewelry a day in her life. I took 2 steps back, scared that someone might happen upon me and accuse me of a crime I did not commit. I noticed a watch sparkling on her right wrist and pink nail polish on her long nails. I wondered what might be in the purse lying between her legs. Money or gold? I rushed to a security barrier located on the road opposite the meadow where they check vehicles' documents and issue speeding tickets. It's set up every day from 7 in the morning to 8 at night. 2 patrols alternate shifts. I saluted the 2 policemen stationed there, jaw trembling, then added some broken words. Dead. I saw her, laying there. I pointed in the direction of the body. One of the policemen craned his neck toward me and said, "You're sick," as he scratched his right calf. "Souls, you'll, with your own eyes." The 2 policemen exchanged puzzled glances. Then I got into their car with them, and we headed to where I guided them. So I want to sort of share, I guess, an observation, and then I have a question I want to ask the 2 of you. So a constant in your biographies and in your works is movement and is migration. You both started out in Algeria, different cities, but same general place in the world. But from there, you follow different paths. The characters in your novels are constantly on the move as well, from and to countries around the Mediterranean, the Middle East, South Asia, the Americas, Europe, and elsewhere, as well as within countries, from one city to another or one region to another, fleeing political, social, and economic violence and seeking new opportunities. So I wonder if each of you could speak a little bit about this theme that seems to be so important in your work and in your lives, which is migration and movement and the idea, the word and the idea exile. We can start with Amara, Lakhous, and then move to Saïd.
Thank you. Migration is a central theme in all my novels. And, you know, in Italy, I am called migrant writer. And there is a tendency, I have to say, there is a tendency to consider immigration as a negative experience. Personally, I believe that immigration is is very positive experience. The reason because migration for me is a new birth. So personally, I can say I was born the first time in Algeria, 1970. So I migrated from my mother's belly into the world. This is a migration, a very important migration. The second migration is when I went to Italy in 1995. So I was born the second time. And in 2014, when I moved to New York, it was the third migration. So 3 migration in my life. I understand why people don't really like migration as experience, because when you migrate from a protected situation into unprotected situation, from stability to instability. So you are in your country and you are protected by your family, your language, your religion. But when you move, when you immigrate, you of course you are going to lose those protections. And this is the problem. So now I can say maybe regarding my second migration, it was hard. It was hard because I escaped Algeria in 1995, and I went to Italy and I lived as a refugee. So for 9 years. So I experienced the hard kind of migration, because when you are in exile or a refugee, you don't have a control of your life. So in comparison to migration, in general, when you immigrate, you have some control of your life. For instance, you choose the date of your departure, the destination. You have some power. But when you are in exile and when you escape, you don't have any control. So you have to escape, and there are people deciding for you. So I lived that experience. It was very, very hard experience. But through that experience, I wrote my novel Clash of Civilizations over an elevator in Piazza Vittorio. And the first character of this novel is an Iranian refugee. Because when I moved to Italy, I lived as a refugee. I lived with other refugees from, from Iran, from Iraq, they were Kurdish. So I shared with them incredible experience. So through that experience, I wrote that novel. So so in the end of the day, for me, migration is great experience. It's great experience, and through migration, I became a bilingual writer. So because I think that the real migration for writers, for artists, for writers, for instance, is the migration of languages. So I am bilingual writer in Arabic and Italian, and I'm migrating from Italian into Arabic, from Arabic into Italian. And one day I hope I can migrate in English too. I mean, trying to be migrant, between those languages.
Thank you. Saïd, do you want to speak a little to the question about migration and movement, both in your life and in your work?
Okay, I share almost the same opinion as Amara said, but I never considered myself as a migrant. What means to be a migrant? To be far away from home country, to be disconnected from your family, friends, your people. I never had this case because time is changing. Today, in the time of social media, we can connect with our home country anytime, all the time. It's not problem. But immigration for me, it has another definition. It's freedom also. When I was in Algeria, let's say I was not free. Why? Whatever you do, others they will ask you why you did that. I remember when I was journalist in Algeria, when I write about some problematic topics in the newspaper, I expect anytime somebody calls me from my family, from, I don't know, from my area, from my town, from my friends, to complain. Why did you do this? Why did you write this? Until I had agreement with the boss in the newspaper that when it's classical topics, I write with my own name. When it's problematic topics, I write with the fake name, to avoid any problems with your own society, with your personal society. So as Algeria is becoming also more and more religious, also don't forget this, that you as a writer you will not feel free to write what you want to write. You must always to justify why did you write this, why did you write in this way and not in this way. Since I'm outside, nobody asks me what I dress or how I dress or why I cook or why I write or what I do. It's for me. When you say immigration, for me, it's connected with another word is freedom. It's more personal freedom. Sorry. So it has also some negative aspects, maybe to be far away from your home country. But for me, in my case, for example, I created like, I could say the little Algeria. For example, I cook Algerian food at home. You can go today on YouTube, you check any video and you can cook like you eat when you were kid. Sorry, you can watch Algerian TV. Anything you can do as you are still in your home country. So I don't feel that I am immigrant. And the second thing that for me, immigration it's synonym of freedom.
I mean, one thing, I mean, that it seems like but in both of your experiences, leaving, migrating or moving somewhere else represents, in Amara's case, a birth or a rebirth or another birth. In Saïd's, in your case, expanded freedom, freedom of movement, freedom of expression, freedom to do what you wish. I do want to ask, and we're the three of us are engaged, or I am engaged in projects with each of you with your most recent novels, both of which are very much in Algeria. That it seems like in your you've been moving about over the past years in various places, and you've been writing about movement around outside of Algeria and around the world. And in Amara, in The Nightbird, published in 2019, you come back to Algeria, and Saïd in The End of the Sahara, just published this past year, you also come back to Algeria. The Nightbird by Amara Lakhous takes as its present, the year 2018, and then telegraphs backwards in time to the fight for independence in the 1950s and into the 1960s. The End of the Sahara actually takes as its present the late 1980s, 1988, in Algeria as its main stage. And I'm wondering if you could each speak a bit about why you've returned to Algeria in your writing. And also if you could speak a little bit about writing about a place from outside of that place, and the role of memory and the role of imagination in writing about places where you are no longer present, and times that are in the past. Amara, maybe we'll start with you.
So I started writing The Nightbird when I left Italy. So I left Italy in 1913 because
2013.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, 2013. At the time, I had the power to choose to stay in Italy or to travel. At the time I became an Italian citizen. So with Italian passport, you can move and you can travel everywhere. I decided to come to New York with my wife. And it was a very easy migration. So I got a green card right away. It's really easy in comparison to my second immigration in 1995. By the way, my first migration, my birth was very critical. Because instead of coming with my head, like my 5 sisters and 3 brothers, I decided to come with my feet. And it was death risk for my mother and me. And at the time in 1970 was very, very risky. So this is, migration is always a complicated experience, but I think it's still very positive. Anyway, so when I left Italy in 2013, I realized that I am giving away that Italian protection. So in Italy, I was protected, not just from the Italian state, protected me, giving me the possibility, the status of refugee to live in peace. And Italy gave me another thing, gave me the possibility to achieve my dream, to become a writer. So in Algeria being a writer was a death risk, and some friends were assassinated for this because they were writers, intellectuals. So in Italy, I found this fantastic protection. I started writing in Italian, and my novels, by the way, are translated from Italian into other languages. So when I came here in the States, I lost that protection, and I said to myself, "What's the now? What I'm going to do?" So I had that Algerian in my, Algeria was inside me. It was an open wound. So I said to myself, now I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to go back to write in Arabic, because I wrote at least the two last novels in Italian. So I said to myself, I'm going to go back to write in Arabic, and I'm going to write to myself the story of Algeria in 60 years. So in 2016, I started going back to Algeria. In 2018, I went with my wife for her field work in Algeria, in Oran. And I started living again with it was hard. It was hard, because putting your finger in the wound is not a pleasure. It's really painful. Anyway, I spent we spent 2 years there, and I started writing, and I wrote this novel, The Night Bird. It's telling the story of Algeria with some distance. The fact that I added an Italian identity to my Algerian identity, I was a little bit protected. Adding Italian language was another protection. So I wrote in Arabic, but with the very important Italian background. So I put in this novel all what I learned during my experience in Italy, in Italian literature, in the Italian culture. So The Night Bird is the result of this experience, writing about Algeria with distance, because I am not an Algerian 100% anymore. This is the thing about identity. So I'm not an Italian 100%. I'm not American 100%. I'm not Algerian 100%. I'm not Kabir 100%. So I have this hybrid identity, and I feel free. I feel free to write about Italy, about Algeria, maybe one day about United States. And this is about freedom. As Saïd mentioned before, the most important value for a writer is freedom, not homeland. Because if you live in your country and you don't have a freedom, you are not free. This is not life. But if you are in exile, but you have a freedom, I think this is much more effective for you as an artist, as a writer. This is why I think that we have to rethink the idea of exile and homeland. Homeland with freedom, yes, I agree. But homeland without freedom is not life, is prison. Yeah, is prison, yeah.
Thank you. Saïd, would you like to speak to the question, and also the question of writing from outside of a place and returning to a place in writing, and also perhaps talking a little bit about the role of memory and the role of imagination that in writing about a place you aren't in, and a time that has passed. And I'll just point out as a sidebar, working with Saïd, it seems to me that your memory is incredible. Just the memory of sites and corners and buildings in Boussada, that we've discussed. And so I wonder how if people could please mute themselves. And so I wonder if you could speak a little to that, Saïd, just the use of memory, the use of your imagination in writing about the past, and writing about a place back somewhere else.
I was raised actually with Algerian literature, with Algerian cinema, with Algerian theater, but I became a writer when I left my hometown. Why? When you left you need some kind of distance to have clear vision. When you are inside, when I was inside, I didn't have clear vision. Inside, you become kind of reactionary person. Whatever is happening, you have to react in the moment quickly. That means you don't take your distance, you don't take your time. But outside, I have my time to think, to see clearly, to analyze in myself before to talk or before to write. This vision, we can got it only if we leave the home country, if we see from outside. This one thing. Second one, I have Algerian imagination. I can't deny this. For example, I remember 10 years ago when I went to Sarajevo the first time to write my previous novel. When I was walking in streets in Sarajevo, for me the first time I was like, wow, I like the city, but what I said, when I see any corner, this is like this one is like Constantine. I always compare. I never quite. I never, for example, to enjoy the moment or to enjoy the place like tourist. Anytime I go to somewhere for first time, I compare this place with some Algerian places that I knew already. That means I have Algerian imagination. Everything I see, I watch, I compare with I saw in Algeria. That means I have always in my writing to return back in my childhood or my home country. This one. Another thing, third thing also. I could say I read everything, of course, around the world. Translations also, but in the first or in the top, I read Algerian literature. I watch Algerian movies. So I see myself. I'm very connected with my home country. I'm as immigrant, but I am in the same time I'm very connected with my past. That is why my imagination is still Algerian imagination when I write.
I'm curious. I mean, thank you. I'm curious actually to ask Amara about the role of technology in your connection with places. It sounds like Saïd, you use and embrace technology and social media in ways that that connect you simultaneously to people and places around the world. And I'm wondering, Amara, if you have sort of a similar relationship or a different relationship to the world through technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Today is absolutely different. You know, the living as immigrant or living far away from your origin, your country of origin. I think that, for example, the story of my father, it's very interesting. So my father was an immigrant in France, in Paris in the 50s. Because of the Algerian Revolution, the war of liberation in the 50s, he couldn't come back to Algeria. So when he left my mother in 1953, 1 year before the beginning of the war, my mother was pregnant of my oldest sister. So my father couldn't communicate with his family during the war. And after Algerian independence in 1962, my father came back, and he saw my sister, and my sister saw her father for the first time when she was 7 years old. Today is different. Today, I can call now my mother in the village in Algeria, in Kabylia, in Tizi Ouzou. I can call my father in Algiers. I can call my sisters in France. I can saw him, and this is funny thing with my mother, because she can see us, and she can comment. You know, you are sad, and you have to eat, etc., etc. So this is, I mean, it's different. Technology changed migration, changed life forever. there is a Algerian sociologist, very important Algerian sociologist. His name is Abdelmalik Sayad. Abdelmalik Sayad was a very close collaborator of Pierre Bourdieu. In fact, for this book, Pierre Bourdieu wrote the preface. So the title of the book, the original title of the book was in French, La Double Absence. So the translation in English, The Suffering of the Immigrant. So Abdelmalik Sayad studied North African migrants in France, especially Algerian migrants. It's the, he studied the generation of my father. This is migration of my father. The concept of la double absence, the double absence, means that the migrant is absent from his country of origin, and it's absent in the country who is living. This is the solitude, the solitude of migrants. And today is not anymore the same. Today, migrants or people who live far from their country of origin, they are in a constant connection to their country of origin. And in my novel, Divorce Islamic Style, the protagonist, it's an Egyptian woman, she complains about her husband because it's always connected to Egypt. You watch the Egyptian televisions, the Egyptian songs, etc. She said she is losing, the contact with the country we are living. This is the extreme. There's another extreme of the solitude, is to live in your country of origin, and a lot of immigrants are doing this. I think they are making this mistake, because when you live in your country, this is not a new opportunity, and you have to to learn language, to try to communicate with and explore new culture. This is the challenge of migration.
Thank you. I have a whole bunch of questions I would love to ask the two of you, but I feel like that wouldn't be fair to the rest of the people sitting here. And we have about 20 minutes or so. And I want to open things up to questions. If people have any questions that they would care to ask Amara, Lakhous, or Saïd, Khatibi, or myself. And you can either, I don't know what the best way to do it, either raise your Zoom hand or a hand if you have your cameras on.
Sir, I have a question about Andalusia. You have the experience, either in your reality experience or in imaginative experience. But this is the time of prayer time. I have to leave the meeting now, so I can meet you personally after any time.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So
Okay.
I have to leave the meeting now. I have to go to prayer. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Faiz.
Thank you.
He's a former student of mine, so we'll have a discussion another time. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to pose to Amara, Lakhous, or Saïd, Khatibi? I have a number of questions I can throw out there and maybe sort of draw people out. Something that I think about constantly in my work and in my non-working hours as well is the issue of language. And we are in a personal and professional relationship that all of us, Saïd and Amara and myself, dealing with language and in language. And I want to ask you both, as writers who are living outside of Algeria, which itself is a multilingual country. The two of you are fluent in speaking and in writing in numerous languages: Arabic, French, Kabyle, Italian, Slovenian, English. I guess I want to ask you, what sorts of considerations go into what is your thought process when you sit down to write about what you're going to write, about what language you're going to write in? And also, Amara, you've now been living in New York for some years. Saïd, you've been living in Ljubljana for some years, and I wonder if there are novels in English or other American languages, or in Slovenian or other Slovenian languages on the horizon. Either one of you. Saïd.
First,
Okay, so I
Amara,
think,
then me. Okay.
yeah, I think language is very central in literature. There's no literature without language. I'm saying this because the great writers in history of history of literature, they share two things very important. The first thing, they have a great vision of the word vision. So, and the second is the style. Style is language. So I had this, I discovered this idea years ago, and I said to myself, it'd be great if I can, manage a great word vision with great style. So this is why I decided to study philosophy in Algeria, to ask questions, try to understand the word. And after studying in philosophy, I studied anthropology, basically in Rome. And migration is a fantastic source of word vision, because when you migrate, you learn new language, you communicate with different people. You had a chance to look back to your culture of origin. So you can have a good word vision. The style is by mixing languages. I was born into a Kabyle family in Algeria, but I was born in Algiers. I was surrounded by Arabic and Arabs, and my friends, when I was growing up, mostly were Arabs. This is why I consider myself Arab, because it's part of Algerian identity, and I had the chance to to live with this part of my Algerian identity. So when I was growing up, I was fluent, in Kabyle and Arabic, Algerian Arabic. So I realized that I was mixing Arabic and Kabyle, not mixing words, but mixing images, proverbs. I can use a Kabyle proverb in Arabic. And then I added French at school. And when I went to Italy, I was ready. I had a platform to add Italian. So by mixing languages, this is why I said several times, describing my literary adventure as a bilingual writer, I Arabize Italian and Italianize Arabic. So I am transporting images, metaphors, expressions from one language to another. And by mixing languages, you can have an original style. And this is my ambition, to have one day a very original style. Even my style in Arabic is very, it's not standard Arabic. My Italian is not standard Italian. It's something different. And one day I hope I can add English and Kabyle. This is the biggest dream in my life, is to live with 4 languages, not 4 wives. So being a linguistic polygamist with 4 languages and trying to mix them and trying to create a new style.
I think if I can just, this isn't my comment, but there's a comment in the chat, Amiel Alkali. I hope it's okay that I read it out. It seems it's to everybody. But really, you know, sort of speaking to what you're talking about, that he says, this is really more of a comment. Oh, this is really more of a comment. It seems to me that if you are able to live in another language, your concept of the human predicament becomes at the same time focused and more complex, because you begin to understand both differences and commonalities almost simultaneously, and it forces the mind into new places. And so I think that's exactly what you were,
it's a good comment.
what you were speaking of.
It's good.
Yeah. Saïd, do you want to speak briefly to that question? And then I see Hannah F. Has a hand up.
Okay, I think it's a complicated question and deserves to complicated answer also. For my case, I had secret love story with Arabic language. At home, for example, my father doesn't speak Arabic. He speaks only French because his generation, they studied only in French school in the time of colonization. So he understood dialectal, of course, implicit, but at home we had always French newspapers, only French books, only that. So for me, the Arabic language is so, it's like really secret love story, like I have to find Arabic books when I was a child. It was difficult at that time, that you love something, but you are not able how to get it. It was supposed that I will write also in French, since I studied in French literature and superior studies. But then in the middle of the way, I choose Arabic. Because since my father doesn't understand Arabic, this will suit me, because it helps me that I will not have auto-censorship. So I want to Arabic to escape any kind of censorship at home. And this language saved me. Why I will shit on her later. That means Arabic, it was kind of ready to escape any control of any of Big Brother, if you want to say, because Big Brother is family today. And then this secret love story became really public love story, because I love this language. Even I have other language, I always dream in Arabic. I always write in Arabic. But there is also political side. Arabic is my battle also, is my war, my second war. My first war is literature, second war is the language, Arabic. Because I'm still surprised, I'm still worried in Western countries. When you say Arabic, you say Muslim, you say terrorist, you say some stereotypes. It still exists. We can't deny this. And I agree, because the Arabic language has been kidnapped by religions, by religion. For me, my battle to say Arabic language is secular language also. It's not only religious language. It's really political battle in this way, because still today the Arabic language is still kidnapped by other groups or other people. My work as a writer to show this kind of, or this side of Arabic as secular language, how much is beautiful this language, and I will continue to write in Arabic to say that is not like in Western countries think about this language.
You, Hannah,
Alex, excuse me, I would like to
okay.
really very short observation. I had a privilege and honor to write a very small blurb to Saïd's novel, Firewood of Sarajevo. A wonderful novel, a really wonderful novel. So I said that Saïd represents, I believe it really, I strongly believe in this. He represents the future of Arabic literature from the, the perspective of diaspora. So living outside, first, writers like Saïd or like me have more freedom. There is no, there is no risk of censorship. This is very important. This is the first aspect. The second aspect is living between many languages. So in this way, Arabic is communicating with other languages. And in this way, we can create a new, Saïd said secular, I absolutely agree with him, and create a new language. So today, writing in Arabic is a fantastic opportunity to be a creative. And this is why I would like to, to continue writing in Arabic, because there are a lot of there are a lot of potential resources in writing in Arabic today, especially from diaspora.
And I just want to sort of tag on the end of that, and then we'll hear from Hannah's question. Amara, I mean, I've known you for some years, and I've read all of your novels written in Italian, translated into English, and I had been waiting for years for you to write a new thing in Arabic so I could possibly engage with it, and I'm very happy that you've done so. Hannah, do you have a question?
Yeah, my question relates to language as well. Alex, did you read Saïd's book in Arabic or in the English translation? And I wondered if there would be a difference in the experience of reading that text in each language. And related to that, for Saïd, in Sarajevo Firewood, you use several languages, like some words from Bosnian and Slovenian. And I wonder how that worked with translation. It must have been challenging. Some of the characters speak to each other in English, which would come across in the Arabic book in a different way than it would in the English. So that's my question, 2 parts.
I mean, I have just a very short answer. If you're talking about Sarajevo Firewood, I read that in English. I did not read that in Arabic. Of course, I did read his latest novel in Arabic because it's not yet published in English, but we're working on it. Saïd.
The challenge of translation or challenge of writing, to understand well?
Both. Well, both really. I mean, when you've got several languages and then it has to be translated, it must be more of a challenge than if it's just one language.
Yeah, we have 2 parts in this novel, Bosnian and other. So first, before to write, I had the possibility to learn Serbo-Croatian language. This language you can find in Croatia, in Bosnia, in Serbia, Montenegro. First one. Second one, characters from Bosnia, they talk this own language, their mother language, of course. Algerian, they speak Algerian, French, or Arabic. Between each other, they have English, in the middle, this language to communicate. They don't have fluent English like is written in the novel, but they can communicate with the minimum of words. So it was three levels of language: Serbo-Croatian, first one, Arabic and French, both Algerian dialect, then English. It was 3 levels. So, like the novel, it was really imagination, of course, based with real events, of course. But in the language, in 1 minute you can communicate. And the writer has just to work with his imagination. That's it.
I see there's a question in the chat from Reem Saab, who, and I'll read it and put it out. I'm not sure who this is directed at. Or to. I do wonder if you've considered the experience of female immigrants in your work. For instance, movement for Muslim women in France, thanks to secularism, may be just another form of oppression. I don't know if either of you want to speak to the issue of female immigrants, female immigration.
Yeah, the protagonist of my Divorce Islamic Style is about it's about this topic. I mean, because living, and this is, you know, divorce Islamic style. I wrote two versions at the same time. It was a crazy experience. And at the time I was living in Vatican City in Rome. I rented a room there, and it was a fantastic experience. I was isolated, and I wrote at the same time the Italian version and the Arabic version. You know, switching the keyboard from Arabic into Italian, Italian to Arabic was a crazy experience. And this novel is based on my dissertation. And instead of publishing my dissertation, I published a novel. And Divorce Islamic Style is the main idea of the novel is that Muslims in diaspora are reforming Islam from outside. The reason, because as I was saying, and I still convinced by this idea that we can't reform Islam from inside, because we have two major powers. We have the military in one side, and we have the fundamentalists in the other side, and they are not adversaries. They play in the same team. They are against women, they against rights of the freedom, etc., etc. So, but living outside, living in Europe or living in the United States, Muslims today have more opportunity to live their religion with freedom, because there is no social control. If you want to fast during Ramadan, you are free. But if you live in Algeria, a Muslim country, you are not free. There is a social control. So it's a private. This is the idea that I used in my dissertation and in my novel. Muslim migrants in Europe, in Italy or in France or here in the States, they are free, because for them religion is a private issue. It's not a collective issue. You don't, in Algeria or in a Muslim country, you pray because your family pray. You fast because your family fast. There is no way. But if you live far away from the social control, religion can become a private, not a collective. The second idea is living in Muslim countries, because of dictatorships, religion became the only way to protest. And I remember in the 80s and during and it's still, I mean, it's still in many countries, Muslim countries, mosque is the only space of freedom. Mosques and stadiums. In stadiums, you can, you can say what you want. It's just that space, and then it's over. But if you live in Europe, in Italy, or in France, or in the States, you are free. You are free to live your religion. So there is no need. There is no need to transform religion in politics. This is the biggest problem that we had in Muslim countries: the politicization of religion because of dictatorships. But living in Italy, in the United States, you are free to express your political opinions. You don't need to transform religion in politics. In this way, religion can become a spiritual issue, not political, spiritual issue. You can pray because you need that spirituality, not to be, in protest, to be in political fight. The third idea is about women. Muslims, living in Muslim countries, women are object of a very, very strong pressure. It's really very, very strong pressure. And I had the chance to observe Muslim immigrants in Italy, and the protagonist of my Divorce Islamic Style is an example. With this, far away from social control, there is a new way. There is a new way to live Islam, and there is a new way to be a woman without, pressure. They are working, and they are Migration, by the way, is a fantastic way of liberation for women. And they can tell you a lot of stories of women after, immigrating, because they are in contact with open society, and they can experience a new possibilities. Instead, in Algeria and other countries, they are closed. They are closed in the cage. So Divorce Islamic Style, I highly recommend this novel because it's someone said it's a feminist novel, and I'm very proud of this. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question, I think, before we have to let Saïd and Amara go on their Friday way. Are there any other questions? Yes, I think Mr. Canelos had a question. No?
Hello, am I audible?
Ah, there you are. Yes.
Hello, can you hear
Yes,
me?
Matthew Canelos.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm just wondering, writing in these different languages or having your books translated to different languages, that's, these different languages are for different audiences. I can only read a story in English, for instance, but I'm just curious, who do you picture as your audience just when you're writing a story in general? I guess maybe it's different from story to story, but who do you feel is the most important audience to communicate with? Do you think about people who speak Arabic? Do you feel that it's more important that they get the story, or are you sort of thinking, I don't know, I guess I sort of have this image outward, like people who are sort of further from your original home that you want to introduce your stories to? Or is it equally important? So I'm just wondering, maybe that's a personal feeling. I'm curious about that, though. So that's my question for both of you.
Good question. Yeah, about audience, intended audience in these works.
This is a good question. I think personally, I'm not really concerned by the audience because I'm not a politician. So if you are a politician, of course, you have to be concerned, or maybe a businessman, or I think writers and artists they live in this universal dimension. And I can tell you a lot of stories, after meeting my readers in different languages. There is something universal. For example, when my novel Divorce Islamic Style and Clash of Civilizations, Sovereign Elevator and Piazza Vittoria were translated into Japanese. So I asked my translator, I said, in Japan, are interested in migration, for example? He said, yeah, we are interested because in Japan, we have Koreans. We have a lot of Koreans, and there are the same problems, misunderstandings, mistrust, difficult in communication. So it's universal. It's really universal. And hopefully we can work as writers, as artists, over this nationalistic dimension. I am against nationalism because nationalism is always against someone. That means nationalist. Nationalist means it is always against someone. And this is why we had fascism, and we have Nazism, etc. And you see what they did, the result. So I think we should work on this universal dimension and don't care a lot about what is my audience. And hopefully there are translators here. There are translators like Alex. They are fantastic translators. There are bridges. They can create bridges between languages and between cultures.
Saïd, do you want to have the final word on the question of language and audience, intended audience?
Okay, I just want to go back just one remark about Islam and identity. Yeah, I am worried also about this bad idea or wrong idea about Islam in Western countries. Of course, we are all against extremist religion, jihadist, but we have to know that is recent phenomena also in Islam. I hope it will finish soon. But when we talk about immigration, that is another phenomena also, immigration from Western to Algeria, for example. A few years ago, I wrote one novel, 40 Years Waiting for Isabel, about Isabel Abraham. She's Swiss, she came from Europe to Algeria, and she was part of this society without problems. She was Catholic and she joined Muslim society. She was woman and she was accepted. That is a human value. That is not about religion, not about citizenship, not about your country. We have really common values.
Absolutely.
About audience, to be honest, when I write, I don't know who will be. I first thing I want to be sure what I wrote I liked. That is me. I'm the first reader. About what I wrote. Then, if it will be read by a white person, I am happy. By 1,000 person, I will be happy. But I can't expect, writing is the only job I think in the world, the only job in the history. You have physical effort, you have moral effort, and you are not sure to be paid. Because if you are mechanical, if you are, I don't know any other job, you know you will do this job and you will pay this amount, you know already before you start. When you write, you can spend 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, up to 5 years, and you are not sure that you will be paid or not, that you will success or not. We are doing such a job, but we are not sure really. Nobody can tell you I will write today a novel or any book and tomorrow it will be sold with such number of copies. Nobody. We are doing really difficult job. We can work for many years and without paid with $0.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you. On that note, I think we need to end this. But I really want to thank Saïd and Amara and everyone, Mujtaba, and all of the organizers, Pauline, all of the organizers of this event and this series, and all of you for coming. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your days.
Thank you.